try.
Some are harder than others.
I will try.
Okay. So this first one, which character said this? And here comes the adventurer now, never apart from his faithful dogs, blank, conceived the craft for a canine comfort. It's a veritable floating palace in the sky, complete with doggy bath and mechanical canine walker.
Is that Up?
That's Up.
Up.
I didn't know you did Up.
Yeah, that was
I didn't know you were an Up.
Yes, that was my first Hollywood premiere on the green carpet in front downtown. And where's Jimmy Kimmel? What's the
On Hollywood Bowl?
El Capitan.
El Capitan.
I remember in
That
yes,
small Disney
yes.
theater.
Adventure is out there. Child's Months.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So David basically starts that movie off.
Yeah, and I made myself cry. It wasn't me, but the scene that they showed of them,
Again.
at the beginning. And it's interesting because Mr. John Voight was sitting behind me, and I was, I guess, kind of scared because he's a scary man. And I was sitting, and my wife and I could hear this. And I turned around and I was like, John Voight is crying.
You made it happen.
Yeah. So it wasn't me, but it was the scene, and Pixar does that wonderfully.
Yes, they do.
But that was just it was my first ever sort
David.
So
you get to share in the credit. You can own your little piece of that. It was partly you.
Yeah, well,
how did that? Was that kind of like a stepping? Like, how did that come about?
Here's the thing.
That's a dream to do a Pixar movie.
When I was doing voices when I was a child, I would mimic people. I have a cassette. Remember the cassette tape? That's how old I am. A cassette tape. We put it in, and I would mimic the guy on the radio in my hometown station. And I would turn I have it. My mother has it. And I'd turn the voice down and go, "This is David. We're here on the time the CKPT was the worst call letters on the planet." But I would pretend I was like, and I just had this fascination with old mics and old announcers. And every Christmas, what we do. Christmas Eve, I'll turn on the old radio shows. I have an old 1940s Zenith, like a beautiful piece of furniture, and I'll Bluetooth the old radio shows. Hi, this is Bob Hope live from Burbank, California. Here we are. And I used to mimic the voices. The Pall Mall cigarettes are good for you. You should smoke them. So, according to your doctor, these are great. And
the pattern, the pacing, and the timing.
And every decade of sort of speaking has a different
cadence.
It's like, to me, it's like jazz. I grew up on jazz, and it's this thing, and
musical
adventure is out there. The way they talk, back in the day, because the mics weren't like those mics that you had to shout into them. It's Charles Mutt, it's Zsa Gabor, it's Rex Warner driving a Cadillac down Hollywood Boulevard, and it's this whole weird thing, and that's
like
what I was
calling
thinking
out a horse race.
Yeah, and I can see it in my head. I can see it's black and white. I see the picture, the big lights, the Klieg's going back and forth across the sky, and there we are downtown. I just could hear it in my head, and as soon as I did that audition, I went, "That's really good," and I hate everything I do. I go, I gotta have a shot at that, right? And they called me. First session was Warner Brothers, and it was me in a giant studio, and then they flew me up. They flew me up to Oakland to Pixar. And
of course they did.
And I went in there, and I was like, I'm at Pixar. And there's Mike and Sully with the big giant, you walk in.
Yeah.
And there was a guy in a rat suit. It was crazy, but I was just amazing. That was like a surreal. It's still surreal that I actually